Do I really live off income funds? The short answer is yes, I do. This video is going to get a little personal. I'm going to go over my investments and a little bit about my life and tell you how I pull this off and how it's possible for others to do the same. I also do my own options trading, and I tend to keep it more on the low risk side. A lot of people may be thinking, well, I think options are risky. I tried them myself and I lost a lot of money, but there's actually some low risk plays that you could do with options trading. It's probably a good idea to do that in another video. For the sake of this video, I'll just let you know though, yes, I do my own options trading. I have growth also. My portfolio is about 50-50 growth and then other investments like income funds. It gives me capital gains. I could take profits at times. I could roll it into other things. I use it as leverage, and this is very important. It doesn't just sit there. My growth is used as leverage for either margin or options trading, so I could make even more money and grow my portfolio. So that's very important to have that. I preach about having growth along with your income funds constantly on this channel. I also have a small margin account, and I've done a video about that. I really need to update that also and go over that. It's pretty small at this point, but I'm growing it over time. I've added some positions lately. Actually, on Friday when we had the big dip is when I added some of my positions. So it's doing well. It's also pretty low risk. I don't go real heavy with the margin. So it's pretty much spending cash. I'm just letting it accumulate right now and pay itself off. I'm not using any of the funds. It's beer and pizza money, basically, is what it comes down to. And it's going to be something that grows, and in years from now, I could start withdrawing from it. Now, one way that I keep my costs down is I actually live overseas in a low cost of living country. I'm actually right outside Bangkok, Thailand, and that really helps me to live this type of lifestyle. This isn't theory. I'm not saying, hey, this is possibly how you could retire early, live off of your income in your portfolio. I'm actually doing it. This is not speculation. I have been doing this for about 2 years now. So if you want to learn from somebody and hear about somebody who is actually living off of their investments, that's what I do. I've been doing it for a while now. I've made some changes in my portfolio in that time, but it's doing well, and I tweak it every once in a while. If I feel like I could do something better, I make changes, and so far so good. I haven't had any issues. I would actually add, a lot of people hear that like, oh, you're living overseas, you're in a developing country. Actually, your lifestyle is better here. If you can make your money in your home country, say in USD, your quality of life is actually higher in many of these developing countries. It's better than 90% of the US. If you travel a little bit, you'll understand that. Just because I live overseas doesn't mean that I live a horrible quality of life. It is a great quality of life. I'm able to travel a lot, do what I want pretty much any day. I have days where I'm pretty frugal too. But there's days that I splurge, I go on vacations. In fact, next month I'm going back home to the US for about 3 weeks to visit family. Now I also have royalties coming in from gas and mineral from a former property that I used to own in the Dallas area. When you own real estate over an area where they're fracking and drilling, you could actually, even though you're going to sell the house, you're preparing to sell it and put it on the market, you could actually get with a lawyer, sign some papers, and keep those mineral rights. And then you'll have this free money coming in, every few months. I get mine about every 3 months. It's a small amount, but what I do with it is I put it into investments. In fact, I put maybe a couple $1,000s of this about a year ago into FEPI. FEPI is actually green now, so I've grown my principal and I get a monthly paycheck, hopefully for the rest of my life or a very long time. You know, most people, if they get a free paycheck like that, they will just instantly blow it all, right? Well, I don't do that. I put it into investments, I keep my principal, and then I live off the dividends or the distributions. And it's doing great for me. So every few months, that's what I do with the paycheck. I have money come in, I just grow my income fund that way, passively. And as you guys have probably noticed, I've gotten away from options funds. I would say I have a little under 10% in options funds in my total portfolio. I've gone over my reasons why. I'm more heavily into Roundhill Weeklies now, so I've converted a lot of that into Roundhill Weeklies. You know, it is a leveraged fund, and I want to be, honest about this. When it comes to leveraged funds, there are rebalancing costs, and a lot of times the investor may not be aware of that. You know, there's added risks in going into leveraged funds. More things can go wrong. But I really like the performance of many of these funds so far. They're doing great. You know, I track it pretty much every day. I look at the percent gains of the underlying compared to the leverage product, the Roundhill Weekly, and they almost always correlate. They're, going up slightly more than the underlying. I'm going to monitor it over the next year and I'll know more. Like I said, I really like the performance of these so far, but if I see any, problems, if I see some that are underperforming the underlier by a lot, but if you look at the ones that are doing well, if the underlying is doing well, even slightly bullish, they will outperform in total returns any of the options funds, which is why I switched. So far so good with those leverage products. But again, if I find, that I don't think they're performing well after a year, I'm probably going to go 100% into growth and just do, my own options trading on my growth stock. If you look at some of them, like for example, NVDW, it's actually outperforming NVIDIA stock. It's unheard of. So if you're very selective with the ones that you buy into, then you can do very well. But be careful to do your due diligence. A lot of investors will say, well, the way that I mitigate risk is I diversify. But the true way to mitigate risk is to study the underlying, do your due diligence, get help if you need from other sources. So for example, I have 2 or 3 people that I listen to about Bitcoin and I source some information from them. Right? I don't try to do everything on my own. And I think that's key. I think the true way to de-risk a portfolio is through due diligence, education, information, and do a deep dive on your investments, not by over diversifying. That is not the way, I believe, the correct way to de-risk a portfolio. So that's what I do. And also, you get higher returns that way. How do I feel about this? I'm kind of anxious about my portfolio. No, I sleep very well at night. I have no issues with my portfolio. So over the past month, SPY has returned about 1.8%. My portfolio has done 9% in capital gains. So I sleep very well at night. I feel very confident about my portfolio. I don't worry. I live an amazing life overseas. Like I say, this is not theory. This is not speculation. I am living the lifestyle. I'm proof that it can work. And I will adapt. If I run into problems, I'll adapt. I'm confident about that. I'm actively manage this portfolio, and that's the key. If you have any questions for me, anything like taxes, freaking yawn, boring. But if you have any questions about that, drop them down below. I'm usually pretty good at answering questions about living off of income funds, living overseas, retiring young. Let me know.